Hi, welcome back to Barely Keto. I'm Carl. Let's get started. In this episode, we're going to go over two recipes. I'm going to make the King Arthur Baking Company's keto-friendly rolls, which are supposed to act as sandwich rolls because I have been really jonesing for some sloppy Joe. So that's what we're going to do. All right, quick overview. Got a baking pan or sheet with some parchment paper, freestanding mixer with a dough hook, room temperature butter, the inaugural debut of the King Arthur Baking Company's keto wheat flour. Looking forward to seeing how this tastes and turns out. They have a sweetener that they recommend. I'm sticking with the monk fruit. Their sweetener has some things that I don't care for taste-wise. Digital scale. I'm going to be setting some tairs to measure things out in advance that I can put it all together at once. Some active rise yeast, an egg. There's going to be lukewarm water, and of course salt. Now I have never made rolls ever from scratch that didn't come out of like the Pillsbury crack and bake thing. So let's see. I weighed everything out, measured everything up, dry ingredients in the butter in the bowl. I'm going to add the water and then put it on low for about 5 to 7 minutes. I forgot to put the egg in at first, so I had to stop and put the egg in. Oops. You're going to need to scrape down the side of the bowl as you go. The butter had a hard time mixing in, which I found interesting, so I had to smear it against the side, and then that took care of that. All right, so here we are at 6 minutes. It's formed a nice ball. Could have worked up the blade here, the dough hook. Take this off. Just sort of sit that in the center. It's very sticky, which is exactly the consistency they say it should be. So then we're just going to cover it with a towel, and then we're going to let it sit for an hour or two and rise. Well, this is rising. I've set it for about 90 minutes just to see what we look like. Your goal is to get it to be twice the size as it was when you first stopped the mixing. We're going to set this aside, and while that's doing its thing, I'm going to start working on the Sloppy Joe part of the recipe. So, be back in a sec. So this is really a simple recipe. I've been eating this my whole life. I've made it a little more savory. It's just garlic and pepper ground. And then this is ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, balsamic vinegar, white vinegar, Dijon mustard. And Dijon mustard has sugar in the ingredients list. It's toward the end, so there's very little in it. But as I've been saying all along, giving up sugar mostly, because there are certain things that it's just not worth it to me, since I'm not hardcore keto and I'm not hardcore anti-sugar for this, that if I have a minuscule amount of sugar in a spice that I can't replicate on my own, like Dijon mustard or Worcestershire sauce, I've made my peace with that. Medium-sized Vidalia onion that I'll mince. And then you can do ground beef, ground chicken, ground turkey. I'm going to go meatless on this one. This is a product called Corn. It has 3 net carbs per cup, which isn't bad. So this meal is probably going to be the highest carb meal I've eaten in a while. And this is based on fungi, so mushrooms. And I've fed this to some hardcore meat eaters who cannot tell the difference. So I'm going to put this together, then I let it simmer on the stove for 30 minutes. The recipe will be up on the Google Drive. All right, so the Sloppy Joe is done. Nice and steamy. Smells fantastic. Very savory. Put it on the stove on a very low heat for about 20 minutes, and then you're good to go. Now, the original recipe that I started with for my childhood calls for 2 tablespoons of sugar. Now, obviously, you could use the sugar substitutes like the monk fruit, but there's already monk fruit in the rolls. So I don't want to go overboard on the sugar or the artificial sweeteners because, again, for me, it makes it harder for me to be successful. So this is it for that. You can put this in the refrigerator if you use the corn. It'll last for up to about 3 days. It's very good. It smells fantastic. Here we are in the final stretch. It's been an hour and 45 minutes. Here's our dough. Now, the instructions say to separate these into about 80 gram to 85 gram pieces. Now, I don't really know how much that is. So I'm going to push the air out of this first, gently. And let's see what that would look like. Very sticky. Probably should have buttered or floured my hands. Okay, so that's 74. All right, that's doable. All right, so we're gonna make this one. Although if I floured my hands, I guess that would defeat the whole purpose, wouldn't it? So these won't be perfect, but you know what? Perfect is boring. And 6. So these will sort of bake together, I assume. Let's get this out of the way, so you can see it. That's that. Then we cover it with some butter. Always butter and cheese here at Shea Barely Keto. I added a utensil or tool, the ever-present baster, and then that goes in the oven for about 20 minutes, and we'll check back then. Okay, it's the moment of truth, fresh from the oven. Look at that, gorgeous, perfectly done. They smell fantastic with this little hint of sweetness. Put these down over here. Now you can put some more butter on top if you want, but I think I've had enough butter, so hard to believe. So I'm just going to put them over on the cooling rack for now, let them cool. Comes right off the parchment paper. They're a little doughy. I think if I do this recipe again, and keep in mind, this is about 4 hours later. I think if I were to do this again, I would have the dough rise in a warmer environment. If I can, get my oven down low enough or use my warming drawer that I have with the oven, I think I would do that to help it rise better because it really didn't rise that much. And then here's a sloppy Joe. And then it's just a matter of putting it all together. And here's the final product. Use a little serrated knife to split the roll. It's somewhere between a slider and a normal hamburger bun, I would say. So not much fit on it in the end. So what I did was made myself a little sidecar because I want the protein. And there you have it. The King Arthur Baking Company Keto Wheat Flour Rolls.